Hi, I'm Dr. Jamil Sayed, and on this podcast, we're going to talk about some deep stuff. I'm here to tell you that you're amazing, and often the only person who can't see that is you. No matter who you are, what you do, or where you're from, there's greatness in you. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Jamil Sayed, and welcome to the Transformation Starts Today podcast, where I interview leaders, champions, and high performers from all walks of life as they share their stories, the lessons they've learned along the way, and empowering perspectives to help you create an extraordinary life without regret, starting today. Today we have with us the breath master himself, Mr. Ryan McBurney. Ryan McBurney is committed to mastering the best-kept secret, that is the breath. Through his own journey and that of his students, he's found that the breath has the power to shift and alter consciousness, to catalyze awakening and transformation, increase overall vitality, and create divine alignment at the core of one's being. I'm excited for this one. And so, Ryan, it's an honor to have you with us. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so grateful to be here with you and all the listeners.
Thank you, man. How are you doing today?
Doing so fantastic. Just feeling so present, feel so connected to everything I'm doing in each moment, and just in love with life.
I love that, man. For anyone who's with us, I know there's audio and video. So for anyone who's with us on video, you can just see it all over his face. He's glowing. And so excited to dive in today, man. And so for my listeners who don't yet know you, they haven't heard your story, I find that each of us has a hero story. And I define that as this journey that we've been through, challenges we've overcome, all that brought us to who we are today, what we do today. And I find there's so much power and impact in sharing that. And very often we don't tell many people that story. And yet when we do, there's so many unlocks that people get to experience. They hear your story, they hear what you've been through. Maybe they're going through something similar. They hear how you overcame it. And that creates some new possibility for them that maybe they weren't aware of. Would you please share with us, what is your hero story and how has it inspired you to do what you do today?
Yeah, absolutely. Love the question, by the way. And yeah, it's actually it's so interesting. One of the things that started me off on the journey early on was learning about Joseph Campbell and the
Mm,
hero with a thousand faces. And
yeah.
that was really early on in my spiritual journey, and kind of just asking myself that question as I got started. And, uh, kind of taking it back to the beginning, I was raised playing sports, and my dad was a football coach, and it was like football was our lives. It was just every day of the week there was some sort of football in our lives, and that was really a lot of my identity growing up and throughout high school. I played a lot of football in high school, and then moved on and played football in college. And with some of that, there was some partying involved. It's a little bit of the
Just a
culture, and
tad,
yeah. And I mentioned that because it plays a significant role for after football ended. And
Yeah.
in college, I ended up tearing my ACL, and I tore ACL, MCL, PCL, and meniscus. Pretty devastating injury. Had the LCL hung on, kept everything
And it's
intact.
anything in that knee area, it went.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was, one of those moments so surreal, because it was like, wow, like I'm not invincible, and this is like the type of thing I thought happens to other people. I didn't think it could happen to me. And so kind of like in a way, a moment of awakening, and that took me off the path of football. I ended up quitting about a 6 months to a year later, coming back to ASU and finishing up there. And that, you know, it's like this terrible football injury, right? This devastating thing turned out to be one of the best things that could have happened to me, because I go to ASU and still finding myself and trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, and re-finding my identity after it's like football ended. What now? Who am I? And then it was a long path of figuring that out, but a necessary one. And a lot of partying continued, and that was like this last part of who I was, of what I was holding on to, and just really searching for something, something to bring me like that level of joy and adrenaline, and like just
Mm.
what I had before. And When I come back to ASU, finish up there, I'm taking a lot of spirituality classes, religion, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with those classes, but I was doing two minors pretty much, some religion classes, spirituality, and then marketing. And it's like, you
That's
know, you're,
interesting.
yeah, exactly. It was just like the two things I was interested in. Marketing, like for some reason caught my eye. And then still after I graduated, had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was just kind of going from job to job, little side jobs, a bunch of hodgepodge of little side jobs. And then uh, kind of just at a point where almost feeling like this existential depression, not feeling a connection to the divine despite those religion classes and really being interested in them. I didn't have this like esoteric, deep connection with the divine, and I hadn't really experienced it. It was more a knowledge level. And then, through just so much exploration, really trying to search and find the thing, my purpose, my mission, my passion in life. It kind of just fell in my lap one day. I watched this podcast. It was Wim Hof. For anybody who doesn't know who that is, definitely check the guy out. He's incredible. And he was teaching Joe Rogan how to do breath work on his podcast. And once he explained how to do it, I paused the episode immediately, started doing breath work, and my mind was blown. And like that's where I reference the breath is the best kept secret. In that moment, I did breath work, and 10 minutes later, 20 minutes later, I was like, how did I not know this existed? Like, how is this not the most popular thing in the world? This is incredible. And from there is this really gradual journey of getting deeper into the practice myself, learning more about it, wanting to share it with others. And over time, it just became my life purpose, my passion, my everything. It's like without the breath, I don't know who I am.
Yeah, I love that, man. There's so many aspects of that. I'll see if I can pull it from memory that I want to just comment on. They were beautiful. Starting from the beginning, you mentioned when football ended, and it was like, well, who am I? And that was part of my identity, and now it's not there anymore. And I shared this in one of my previous podcast episodes. I won't go into the full story, but just the idea of baseball was my life until I was about 14 years old. And then when I tried out for the freshman baseball team, and I thought I just crushed that tryout. I was like, oh, that's in the bag. And then I went to school a couple of days later, and the paper was on the wall, and I didn't make the team. I was completely devastated. And it was the same idea. I didn't make the baseball team. I can't tell anyone. My family's gonna be like, it's like I brought dishonor to the family. That kind of vibe. But in hindsight, and I take clients often through a similar process where I looked at my life a couple of years ago, and I thought back and I said, hold on a second. Here's my life the way it is right now. And what helped that come about? Well, that came about because I was in this situation at the time, or I met that person, or whatever it was. I had that skill set. Well, how did that come about? And I kept tracing it back, and I actually brought it all the way back to not making the baseball team. And then I said, oh,
Yeah.
wow. So I called the exercise not making the baseball team is the best thing that ever happened to me. And when you have something similar, we all have some version of that. And this is what I'm alluding to. In the moment, something happens, you didn't want it to happen. And all of a sudden, it feels like devastating. It feels like overwhelming. I can't handle it. What am I going to do? I feel lost. Maybe somebody's listening right now, and maybe you're going through something like that. But I make this distinction. Think of it like for me at least, the distinction is the way your ego might see something and the way, let's say, soul or spirit might see something. Your ego is almost like a horse with the blinders on. And so for anyone who's not on video, I just have my hands kind of cupped around my eyes, like tunnel vision style. So your ego is just seeing what's right in front of you. And your ego is going, it's not supposed to be this way. I don't get it. Why is this happening? It's not fair, and so on and so forth. But your spirit doesn't have the hands there. So your spirit sees that full 30,000 foot view of it all, sees how it's all going to connect later, see how it's all necessary. And your spirit is basically saying, keep going, trust the process, it'll make sense one day. But your ego doesn't see that in the moment. And so just like it sounds like the similarity, you having that transition away from football, in hindsight, you look back and you go, wow, that whole challenge, all the hardships that were in the moment, they were necessary for you to become who you are today. That was the case for me as well. And I hope everyone listening just be with this idea of what if everything that I've gone through, all the challenges, all the hardships, what if they've been preparing me for exactly what I've been asking for? but I have to get stronger. I have to get wiser. I have to be kind of shaped and guided by life to get to where, where I need to be. That was the first part. And then the last part I wanted to comment on, it'll come back. It just completely went away.
Yeah. Well, as it comes back, I would like to touch on what you just mentioned. And
Please.
it's so powerful. There's really the reframe, right? Of this is what happened, and can I not only accept it, but then give it meaning? And I feel like I might have heard you talking about this on the podcast with Anthony Balduzzi.
Yeah.
And, give it meaning, figure out what that meaning is, and allow it to catalyze, right?
Yes.
Allow it to create something new in our lives, and so powerful. And the same thing happened. I tore my ACL a second time after I was just playing recreational football, flag football, and tore it again. And I remember that one thinking, okay, you know what, the first time it happened, it ended up changing the trajectory of my life in a positive way. I had seen it maybe years later, and so I was like, I can use this one. I can use this one to catalyze me in a positive way. And it was really challenging in that moment. And it was maybe like 3 months of really challenging times of just like being tested and coming back to, I need to trust this intuition I had that I can use this as a catalyst. But it's just such a powerful thing to be able to lean into that trust of, okay, I know this is here for me. I trust the universe. I trust my life course and what God has in store.
Yeah, there was this quote that I remember hearing from Tony Robbins probably like 5-10 years ago. Something to the extent, might be a paraphrase, but it's the idea close enough. The idea of when using that power that we all have to interpret and reinterpret, the present and the past, when the worst day of your life becomes the best day of your life because of the way you altered the meaning of what it means to you and what it allows you to do going forward, the game changes instantly. And I know in my own life, that baseball example is, on the one hand, it's like a small example. It's, on the other hand, it was really big for me in the moment, like it often is for us. It's a big deal for us in the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, in hindsight, years later, we don't think it's that big of a deal. But in the moment, it's everything. And then anyone who's heard the first episode of this podcast, I share about my story with my dad. And that story was like the next, one of the next bigger versions of that same thing, that in hindsight, I look back and I go, wow, everything that I do now, the way that I support people, the depth I love to go with people, that I'm even able to go with people, is because of the light that I found in the darkness of that experience. And so what if, as a possibility, you can look back and first mine for the gold and pull the lessons out of that hardship, so that now you have this opportunity moving forward for yourself and others to make life better? And what if you can trust that whatever you're going through now, that there's also lessons in this one, and there's opportunities to help you become who you want to be that you may or may not even be aware of. If you're aware of it, great, ground yourself in that and build. But if you're not aware of it, trust that it's there, you just don't see it yet. And I think that's also really important. And it did come back. I was going to comment on, as an acknowledgement to you and for everyone listening, something to be aware of. So here's Ryan watching this Joe Rogan Wim Hof interview. And then Wim Hof, I guess, demonstrates, let's say, how to do breathwork, at least his style of it. And you watched it and then you paused it and then you went and practiced it. Now, for everyone listening, how often, and I've been this person too, so there's no judgment here, but how often do you read a book or watch something, somebody describes something or requests, hey, go take 5 minutes and do this exercise. And then you just keep turning the page and you just read right by it. Or you hear someone share something and you're like, that sounds cool. And then you don't do anything about it. But Ryan heard it and he goes, that sounds interesting. Let me try it. And that completely changes the whole course of his whole life. And so what if you could be open to, if you're listening or reading or you're consuming content in some form, and some aspect of it seems like there's a challenge. Hey, do this exercise, try out this practice, actually give it a shot if any part of you is relatively interested in that, and see how it is for you, because it could shift the rest of your life and take you on a journey that you're not even aware of yet, that can just impact yourself and so many others to come. And so one thing I wanted to ask you, Ryan, is on your journey, when you were in your darker moments, when you were having challenges and hardships, what were some of the things that either you reminded yourself of in the moment that helped you, or maybe it wasn't even in the moment, it's in hindsight, but things that wow, for anyone who's listening who's going through challenges like that, here's what I would share with them that could really help them through that experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing that just comes to mind is it felt like I was making choices that were taking me on a downward trajectory. And whether it was just abusing cannabis or psychedelics or any substance, binge drinking, it was always kind of just chasing the highs. And it felt like I was heading for a rock bottom, my own rock bottom, right? And we all would have our own spectrum there. But it felt like I had hit the rock bottom before and kind of bounced off a few times. And there was times where like I had this high level awareness and I saw exactly what was happening, kind of saw the zoom out, of different choices, different times that I'd reached that point, and thinking, okay, I can change course without having to bounce off rock bottom.
Yeah.
I don't need the catalyst of going all the way down to rock bottom again and then having this bottom be deeper and darker and worse than any previous one. And so that realization was really empowering, and it takes like this extra awareness, conscious choice, something inspiring, some catalyst, right? Other than hitting the bottom, but it takes something to reverse that momentum. But the more energy we put into that, the more we can actually change course and go up without having to go down.
Yeah, I think that there's so much wisdom in that. When somebody is experiencing, somebody is listening right now, let's say there's an aspect of your life, or maybe overall, big picture, you're just not happy. You go, I don't like my life the way it is right now. But you kind of feel like you're in a rut. You kind of feel like it's been like this for a while. It might even gradually be getting worse, but it's slow enough that you're just kind of in it. And you want to change, but you don't know where to start or what to do first. But the one realization to be with, I hope you glean from Ryan's story, I can't guarantee you what's going to happen in the future in regards to if you try this, it'll work. If you try that, it'll work. Everyone's different. I can't guarantee you which way is the right way for you. You're going to figure that out on your own just by trying things. But I can guarantee you that if you stay where you're at doing exactly what you've been doing, you're probably going to get more of that. And when you realize that, why would I want to keep going and realizing, I'll change when life, quote unquote, forces me to change. I'll change when I feel like I have to. You're free to do that. And it's going to be a bumpy ride, and it's going to have a lot of probably pain and suffering along the way that aren't necessary. But if you realize, what, maybe there's one thing I can do right now. Maybe there's an inclination, there's a gut feeling, there's a pull, there's something that my spirit's like, that sounds kind of cool. Mm-hmm. And just start moving in that direction. Kind of like going back to that little example I shared with your story. Ryan's watching the video. Wow, this breathwork thing's amazing. How have I never heard of this? And then he paused it and he tried it. He didn't have to do that, but it's like, well, what else am I going to do? Might as well try it. I'm just sitting here. So like you try it, and then it just changes the course of your whole life. So in that same way, how could you start making your life better right now? Look at your life as it's lived currently. Think about how it could be better. Then think about some ways to make it that way. And then just pick one of those things and go do it. When you do that, you start getting momentum. Sometimes people think, I don't feel like it, or I don't feel confident. And the challenge that they're running into, in my perspective, is they think that the feeling like it or the confidence is a prerequisite to the action. Mm-hmm. And it's not. You don't have to feel like something to do it. And you don't have to be confident in order to do it, because confidence comes after. Yep. Why would you 100%. Feel confident? Yeah. Why would you ever feel confident about something that you haven't done before? If you are, you're just deluding yourself, because the confidence comes from the doing it. And then you mentioned the podcast with Dr. Balduzzi that we did. And it's in that podcast, we talked about that confidence-competence loop. The better you get at something, the more confident you become. But the confidence isn't the prerequisite, it's the result. And so when we realize that, it's like, okay, wow, I can be afraid. I can feel uncertain, and I can do it anyway. There's so much power in that, because some people listening right now, you think that you have to have that confidence. You have to have it all figured out. You have to know how it's going to go. You have to be certain of the outcome before you even start. And my loving request of you is to turn inward and realize, wow, am I coming from fear when I do that? Am I coming from this perfectionist tendency of, it's really insecurity of, I don't want to be perceived as looking bad, all these kind of things of, I'm afraid of what other people are going to think about me, because that's one of the only reasons why you wouldn't be willing to put yourself out there. Because if you were cool with it, then why would it matter? And so when you realize, I'm human and I'm in this adventure and I'm going to try things and they're not going to always go according to plan, and that's okay. And I'm going to learn, I'm going to taste as many things as I can. I'm going to find the thing that lights me up and I'm going to dive into that fully. It doesn't mean everything's going to keep working. There's going to be moments where you fall and you get back up. But life gets better one step at a time and one moment at a time. And the time to start that transformation, which is alluding to the name of the podcast, is always today. It's always right now, because now is all you got. If you're waiting to transform in the future only is real in your imagination. And if you're waiting to transform in the past, it's only real in your memory. So you can sit there and just talk about it. And it reminds me of that. There's a quote, it's a Chinese proverb: the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is right now, is today. Because 20 years ago, you got the idea, oh, it'd be really great to plant a tree here. And then you didn't. Now it's been 20 years and you look back and you go, wow, I really wish I had planted that tree 20 years ago. It would have come in handy. All right, well, we can't do anything about that. But are you going to be saying the same thing 20 years from now?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you going to plant that tree and then 20 years from now you go, I could have planted it 40 years ago, but at least I planted it 20 years ago. But so often we are that person. 20 years go by, 40 years go by, 60 years go by, and you've been telling yourself that same story. I really wish I had started A, B, and C. And you always came up with some story or justification or reason why you didn't. And all that is story, justification, or reason. You rationalize. Now break that up. You tell yourself rational lies about why you can't get started, right?
Wow.
It's never true. And so I just went on a little bit of a rant there. So I'm going to
I
pause.
love it. Yeah. Well, no, I love it. And I think two perfect branches off, back to the tree analogy is branching off. We can, you mentioned uh, that sometimes there's that resistance to make that choice. And it can be as easy as making the choice and just doing it despite not having the inspiration or the motivation, despite not feeling connected or wanting to do it. And then sometimes 10 or 15 minutes in, once we're doing it, it's like all the inspiration's there. It's like, wow, I'm so glad I'm doing this. And we just get energized by doing it. So there's just this tiny little bump of resistance to get past. And another thing that I really use in my day to day is the breath. So if I want to inspire myself, then I will breathe into something. It's like, okay, I know I deserve to do this. And I just get myself aligned with what I know is going to be the thing that gives me the most long-term gratification, the most inspiration, the most joy, is taking action on doing those things that actually matter.
Yeah, so a little tag. I thought of a little tagline for you. It's like inspire to inspire.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you're going with the breath. Now, if somebody has no understanding of what breath work is, how it can support them on their journey, how do you describe it? How do you define it for somebody who's just getting started? Maybe there's people listening who are pretty advanced in their breathwork practice, and other people, they've never tried it before.
Hmm.
How would
Yeah.
you describe that for like a beginner?
There's my favorite place to start is the three principles of the transformational breath formula.
Please. Yeah.
And so that's funny. I was just talking about this at my breath workshop that I held last week.
Mhm.
But the first one is a double-sided coin. You know that phrase. I made the joke like, well, of course it's a double-sided coin. What coin doesn't have two sides? you know. So for this first one is breath awareness and conscious breathing. And then, so a lot of the magic comes from this nuance of those two different things. And Patanjali and Buddha both talked about how awareness and consciousness are not the same thing, and that they're two separate things. And so we can first cultivate this breath awareness, where we're just watching the breath without controlling it, almost like a meditation. So that's a great place to start, is just find breath awareness. And then we can kind of mix in that conscious breathing, or that might come in by itself. And we can just begin to breathe consciously and be aware of the breath. And from the most fundamental place, the absolute beginner, maybe someone who's never practiced breath work or any conscious breathing, we can just start with breath play. That's the easiest place to start. And we call it breath work, right? And it kind of maybe sounds like this thing, oh, I don't want to do that. But breath play, I just get to play with my breath, just be with it, be with the sensations, the feelings, the thoughts that come up during it, and just breathe in whatever way feels good. And there's no right or wrong. And it's just all exploration, experimentation. And that is my absolute favorite practice. I wake up in the morning and do that pretty often. And so that's the first key, the first principle is breath awareness, conscious breathing. And then the next two, we have activation or breath energy, power. That's all the second one, right? And I think of it kind of like the inhale. I'm creating power, I'm creating breath energy, I'm bringing prana, chi into the body. And then the third one, relaxation. So after a big activating in breath, full relaxation. And that's just a very simple place to go with any breath practice.
Mm.
And bringing that awareness and that consciousness into both of those aspects. So we're consciously activating on every breath and we're consciously relaxing on every breath. And it's the seesaw, up and down, up regulating, down regulating, activating the spirit, relaxing the spirit, going deep into surrender, into the feminine, and then into the masculine, the power, the activation, and just balancing the spirit, balancing the whole mind body system through those three principles.
Something that a word that you use there that I wanted to speak to. I love that, everything's being done consciously. And another word that, may or may not be, at least it's a synonym, intentionally. And when
Mm-hmm.
we're, bringing more consciousness and intentionality into our lives in any aspect of our life, in my experience is, it's going to be a good thing for you. It's going to add another layer of depth and richness to whatever your experience is. And so for most of us, at least my experience of this, as well as what I've read, most of us breathe very unintentionally, unconsciously. We typically keep it pretty superficial, kind of top third of our lungs, maybe. We don't really go deep. We have, like you said, somebody hears about breath work, they don't know much about it, and they might think, well, you're going to teach me how to breathe? Like I've been breathing my whole life. But they don't recognize. I remember I would say that to patients sometimes, and when I practiced medicine, and they would say, um, I've been breathing my whole life. And I'm like, yeah, but with respect, you're not doing it right. And then we'd have a conversation about it, give them an experience of it, and they go, wow, I've never like breathed like that before. I never experienced that kind of relaxation just from my breathing, even though all my quote unquote problems are still here. It's like just by shifting the way they're breathing, their whole everything changed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just really, really, that's an exciting thing that I have found, that it can be so simple yet so powerful, and so like quick in the result that it produces for somebody. Can you please share with us what are some specific examples of how breath work has benefited either your life or your students' lives, or both, if you have any stories you want to share of kind of some examples?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing you shared is something that will just benefit anybody who does even just the most fundamental practice is, breath work in its most raw form, most fundamental form is meditation.
Mm.
And through that breath awareness, conscious breathing, we're focusing on the breath, we're focusing on this singular thing,
Mm.
then we're improving our focus. We're working that muscle of focus and being able to hone in and bring this inward narrowed focus on something, and that muscle is also going to go the same way outward. Anytime we have an outward narrowed focus, then we'll be able to practice that
Mm.
and be able to have more productivity, more clarity, and more just joy with what we're doing. We're going to get more of a dopamine
Mm.
release as we go through that. So that's just one really simple benefit. And one thing I've noticed is I don't know if I shared this part, but I had learned so much in school about the all the different world religions, and I saw the connection between all the religions. I felt like, yep, they all have this same fundamental truth, and yep, okay, the universe is God, and here there's all this I understand it, I see it, but I didn't know the connection to it. But then through the breath, once I started practicing breath work and got really deep into my practice, it all, I felt it. I felt the connection to the divine, the universe, and all the different things about religion that I had learned. And that was just the most magical thing to me, is like that I had never felt a connection to any amount of divinity before breath work. That was, that's my connection to source. Anytime I want to connect to source, connect to infinite energy, connect to all that is oneness within myself, and feel that I am whole and complete and that I don't need something outside of me, I can turn to my breath. And that's my biggest takeaway and awakening and transformation that I've gotten from the breath. And I know many others have felt that as well. And as far as students, it's a lot of awakening for myself and for students. I see these just downloads come in after one-on-one sessions. So part of my practitioner program is I offer 10 one-on-one sessions to my students. And these sessions are really powerful in a different way from group sessions. There's so many different ways to practice the breath on your own, in a group setting, one-on-one, and countless other ways. But in these one-on-one sessions, I get to see the downloads come in, and whether it's just realizing what's true for them, realizing the areas where they're not in integrity with themselves and with what really is true for them, what matters to them, what they say they're going to do, what they want to do, and then just all the pieces of the puzzle coming together. And the reason this happens is because breath work increases brain connectivity. The left and the right hemispheres connects different parts of the brain that usually don't talk to each other. It's very similar to psychedelics in that way. So it's kind of like similar to a medicine journey, some people would say. And yeah, that's one of the most powerful things, just that clarity, that creativity, and inspiration to take action on that clarity that comes in.
When you talk about the left and the right brain hemispheres, is that also the reason why people can have emotional releases from breath work, where they're in a way, processing or reprocessing or releasing some type of emotional experience? Maybe it was a trauma, it was stuck energy, whatever you want to call it. I've heard many, breath practitioners describe things like that. And I'm sure you've seen that, numerous times. Is that a similar, like the reason, the rationality?
Yeah, I'm sure that plays a role as well. How I really see it is like that we're just pouring this breath energy into the body, right? And we're just taking on more and more energy. And, let's say there's, I know you're very familiar with this, and emotion stuck somewhere in the body, right? There's like this emotional, energetic block. And so we start to infuse more and more energy into the body. And as that energy flows through the body, it might be coming to this block, this density. And it's kind of like coming to it. And as that energy flows, it's maybe releasing a little bit. So someone might feel a little bit of an emotional release. And then, there's these minor adjustments that can be made during the practice, where it's like this emotional release is right on the surface. It's ready to come out, but somebody's maybe not ready to let go. And then there's this subtle invitation, this permission, this holding space for somebody that allows this release. The emotion comes out. And I kind of envision it, see it as something that's happening more in the body. And there's, of course, a psychological component to it as well. But yeah, that's a really interesting aspect, those huge emotional releases that come. And then it's like somebody's crying and then they're laughing. And then all of a sudden you're doing a little bit of both and you don't even know which one it is.
Yeah. So if you're open to it, I'd love to, I haven't done this before on the podcast, so this will be a first time right here. If you're open to, I'd love to create an experience for all of our listeners, for anyone who either maybe they no experience with breath work, but they'd like to, give it a shot, similar to kind of what that Joe Rogan Wim Hof interview did for you. Somebody who's here with us right now, maybe you can take us through a 2 minute, like a mini version of 1 minute of a breathwork practice that's simple enough for beginners to do, that gives them a taste for what this work is like. And maybe it becomes that catalyst where they're interested in diving into it further, maybe an area of life they've never experienced. And so I will leave it to you. One disclaimer: if anyone's driving, please don't do this. You can you can pause the video, the audio, pull over to the side. You can try it out, or you can just come back later and go through it. Just make a mental note. But as long as it's safe to close your eyes, assuming that's what Ryan's going to have us do, um, I will turn it back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you shared that. I was going to mention that as well. And yeah, so just allowing yourself to get comfortable, and as you find a nice comfortable position, finding that breath awareness, seeing if you can just bring your attention inward into the breath. And there's no right or wrong way to breathe. You can breathe in through the nose and through the mouth. But see if you can just notice, are you breathing in through the mouth or the nose? See if you can notice the breath going down the airway. Are you breathing into the belly or the chest? How does the breath feel? Do you have a feeling in your body as you receive the breath in? Or does it feel a little vacant? You don't have a connection to the feeling of the breath. So just being aware of that. And then as you continue to breathe, you might invite in that conscious breathing, and might breathe in through the nose, breathing into the belly, into the chest, filling it all up. And then a nice sigh of relief from the top. And then slowly turning that back into the inhale, breathing in. Once you get to the top, nice sigh of relief. And there's no rush on the inhale, letting it just be this nice, simple practice where you're breathing fully in, nice full inhale into the belly, into the chest, and then a nice little sigh of relief from the top. And then you can start to maybe speed that breath up just slightly, one breath at a time. Again, no rush. Maybe a little bit more volume than the last breath, just getting all the way to that full breath, fully in. And just keeping it going, removing any pause between the inhale and the exhale. And maybe a little bit more power on every inhale. We'll just do 5 more breaths, each breath a little bit more powerful than the last. 4 more, and as the breath gets more powerful, the exhale, the sigh of release gets more powerful. 3 more. 2 more. And then 1 more, fully in and hold. Holding up at the top for just a moment. And then slowly letting go, relaxing. And pausing down at the bottom. No need to breathe, just relaxing, holding the exhale. And just noticing what you notice, just being with the sensations, being with the feeling, your state. Your body extra oxygenated, so there's no need to breathe just yet. Slowly, this urge to breathe might come, and you can just push past that first urge, and that urge builds, and when it gets really strong, you can go ahead and receive that full breath into the belly, into the chest. Inhale and hold up at the top. And once you breathe in and hold the inhale, holding it for as long as it feels good, maybe about 10 to 30 seconds. When you're ready, letting it go. And just being with that state, being with your energy, and knowing this is a small sample, a glimpse of the power of the breath and the power it has to transform your mind and body, the state. And that's one round of breathing, and we can continue to do a second, a third, a fourth round, and each round these effects get more and more powerful. And you'll notice more and more effects from the breathing. And I like to mention this at the beginning, but now is a perfect time too. Sometimes we start to feel a little bit lightheaded or tingly during the breath work, maybe hot, cold. You can even start to feel almost these cramping sensations, and it's all perfectly normal. It's all safe, and it might be a little bit uncomfortable, but we can continue to just breathe into it, or we can always slow the exhale anytime we want to come back down to earth, ground a little bit.
Thank you, Ryan. That was beautiful. And if I may share, but this is a combination of my experience of that as well as something that might be really useful for everyone who tried that with us. Strongly encourage you, if you just listen to that, again, maybe if you're driving, that's one thing, do it later. But if you were able to do that and you didn't, please do that. That was so grounding, presencing, relaxing, combination of all of them. And I think so many people who might be listening could be experiencing stress, anxiety, fear, frustration, any kind of emotional irritation that you might deem negative, that you don't want. This type of process, there's a word that comes up for me, and that word is the word mantra. Now, the word mantra means a tool of the mind. So when somebody uses a mantra, typically it's a word, or it could just be a sound, but it doesn't have to be. In this case, the breath serves as a mantra, in my mind at least. And so what I mean by that is when somebody has a mantra, the one that maybe growing up for me was like the stereotypical one is Om, but it could be anything. But when you use that and you're saying it, whether verbally or in your mind, over and over again, you're filling up in a way your awareness, your consciousness with that. So those random thoughts that show up typically don't, because you're kind of preoccupied with the mantra, you're preoccupied with the word, you're keeping your focus like one pointed so that you can really be present with whatever you're doing. And that came up for me right in the beginning when we were doing the breathing. And I just thought, wow, just right now, by like you said, tuning into, well, how does the air feel when it's moving through the airways? As much as I can tune in and feel that, how does it feel when I inhale? How does it feel when I exhale? How does my body move? How does it respond? And then for me at least, when I think about that mantra in my head on the inhale, I might think the word in. And on the exhale, I might think the word out if I ever need to really presence myself, because maybe the thinking is kind of going everywhere. And that practice was just so beautiful. And like Ryan said, that was a short sample and of, the tip of the tip of the iceberg of what this guy knows. And so thank you for sharing that with us. I hope that everyone practices even that. He says you can do it 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And once you know how to do it, bring it into your life. Make it a practice in the morning. Make it a practice before you go to bed. Maybe it'll help you sleep. Maybe it helps you, ground yourself in the morning to like kind of take that leap for the day. But either way, again, thank you for giving us all that gift. That was wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And, pleasure and an honor, and just love to share the power of the breath so that people, it still just blows my mind that not everybody knows. It's like, how is it not
Yeah.
the most popular thing in the world? I
Yeah.
might just be obsessed, but
No, and the thing I love is that I think an obsession in the context that we're describing is beautiful, and I think it's exactly what is necessary, in the sense that I what I want to say is everyone, but some people might argue with that, but I'm just gonna say it. Everyone's got that thing that they may have not found it yet, but they will at some point. Everyone's got that thing that they choose to be obsessed about. And when you can find something to obsess over that actually serves other people and it makes your life better, all of a sudden, like that quote that I've shared with you, that people on the podcast have probably heard me say, the rising tide lifts all boats. And I love that, because we all win. Like, what can I get obsessed with that makes everybody's life better, including my own? And in that sense, that obsession to me is a very positive thing. And if we can find that, which I know you have, it's an amazing experience. And so that, like, the foundation of this podcast, the foundation of the work that I do is to help people create an extraordinary life without regret. In your life experience, given the lessons you've learned along the way, how would you advise anyone listening to create an extraordinary life without regret?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I would definitely, use my bias and invite people to just dive into the breath, as that's going to just enrich anything that anyone does. You mentioned everybody has that thing that they could find, and I feel that strongly about everybody can benefit from breath awareness and conscious breathing,
Mm,
and it's only going to enrich and infuse more awareness, more consciousness into their life, more presence and more joy, more high vibrational emotions, more
mm,
emotional states, experiences, connection, you know, and whatever. If somebody already has that thing that they're so connected to, it'll enrich that. If they haven't found it yet, this will be something that supports them in finding that. And I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but I feel like it's probably somewhere in the realm.
no, no, I'm sure it does, because the breath work that I have gotten to practice in a loose framework in my own life, it's been very transformative, and it's added so many, additional layers of depth for me and allowed me to really explore myself more. And just that presence of slowing down, I felt that as well. I don't think I shared that. I felt that as well in, my experience, at least, of the breath practice you took us all through. Just slowing down in a world that for most of us seems very fast paced. And when you
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's go, 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 especially like I live in New York, so I'm in the Northeast. So in the Northeast over here, we're kind of known for that. If you feel like it's go, 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 you feel you can't catch a break, if you feel like slowing down is going to stop you from getting where you're going, I often share with people sometimes you got to slow down to speed up.
Mm-hmm.
And you slow
Absolutely.
down first, pause, regenerate, recuperate, reestablish. Where am I headed? Do I still want to go there? And then
Mm-hmm.
if that's the case, you move forward. But the breath work creates like that window, that space of opportunity to just be with yourself in a way that most of the time we don't take. And I think that's a beautiful addition to that extraordinary life without regret.
Absolutely. And I was reading a Joe Polish book this morning, and there was a topic within the first chapter, and it was talking about how it's like we could spend a month working on something and just be busy, 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 and have it not be productive. But we could also just slow down and do hard, smart work for an hour and have it be more productive than the
Mm,
amount of stuff we'll do in a month. If
yeah.
it's working smart along with hard instead of just hard and the hustle and bustle, just go, 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 right? We could just grind our face off, but we could waste our time.
Yeah. Something that's coming up for me, I find that there's some pivotal moments in each of our lives where we took a chance on us, or we made a decision that just every decision, if you want to look at it in the micro, every decision changes your life. But there are certain decisions that seem to have bigger impacts on our life. Can you share what you might call a big decision that you've made, or a risk that you've taken that you're deeply grateful for, and why?
Mm, yeah, there's definitely many. Um, one, I'll say I I was living out in Chandler, which is a part of Arizona. It's a part of the greater Phoenix area for anybody not from out here. And then a lot of my friends that I was meeting lived in Scottsdale, maybe like a 30-minute drive. So I would it was around the time where I was really starting my business and trying to learn more about business and to just figure things out and kind of stepping into a new way of being, stepping into a new life that was different than my old life. It was like still this transitional period,
Mm,
and I was living with my brother and his now wife, my sister-in-law, and loved them both so dearly and really enjoyed all the time living with them. And at the time, it kind of just felt like, I deserve to be around people who are on this same path, who are really creating a business and in that mindset of bringing a vision to fruition. And then there was this like moment where I got catalyzed into a move. It was it wasn't necessarily a choice, but it was like, okay, well, I could figure out my situation in Chandler. I know Chandler, or I could just make the jump and move to Scottsdale and be around this new friend group that I've been introduced to, that I'm like getting to know. And so I just like shot out a text, and this kind of brings me back to this this idea that my friends shared at a recent entrepreneurs event. They were on stage talking about the power of one, and one text, one conversation, one connection, one anything can change the course of our lives.
Mhm.
And I shot out one text to my friend Nick and his roommate Paul, and I said, "Hey, like, I want to move to Scottsdale. Like, what's your guys' situation? Are you open to doing a 3 bedroom, or blah blah blah?" And then they said, "Well, no, we've got our situation, but here's Tim's number. Reach out to Tim. He's actually looking for a roommate right now." And like literally days before, his cousin had just let him know he was moving back to Missouri. And so I did that. I took that action and I did that, even though it felt a little uncomfortable. And I know my life would not be even close to the way it is now had I not done that. And I just know within the circle there's so many similar examples of that, of people moving from Colorado, Michigan, California, all these different places, taking a chance to move to Arizona. And it's like this hodgepodge of coming together in this group. And I know SCNM, the naturopathic medicine school you went to, is probably very similar. People coming from around the world, around the nation, to come together to meet, and these amazing lights, all this similar vision, similar purpose of just being there, all they are meant to be. And it's just such a beautiful thing to get to listen to that intuition, take action on it, and then see it flourish and really come to fruition.
Mm.
So that's definitely one of the most powerful decisions. Another one is, I remember, so my mentor, my breathwork mentor, Dan Brule, he was coming to Arizona, and there's this optimization studio, wellness studio, like I go to. They have ice bath, sauna, jacuzzi, all this stuff,
Yeah.
and they were hosting. Dan was coming to Arizona to do a 3-day breath workshop, and I thought, like, oh yeah, what? I've known about this guy for a while, and I've been looking for a new teacher that's not Wim Hof and like not all these like the people I knew in the space. Dan is kind of different, and there was something about him that I thought like, oh, I'm interested by him. And he was coming for these 3 days, and there was a camping trip planned that same weekend. And I was like, well, I could go to the first day of the camping trip and then leave and go to the rest of Dan's thing, or I could just go to the camping trip and like I'll see Dan later. I'll see him online. And then I decided, what, I'm going to buy a ticket. I'm going to do this. Like, there's something that's calling me to it. I just felt this calling, and go on the camping trip, and I was having a great time. I was like, oh man, I got to leave. Like, I almost wish I wasn't. Blah blah blah. The ego of just having a fun time with the friends, and I leave, come back into home, into town, go to the event, and within 15 minutes of being there and listening to Dan talk, this guy's an amazing storyteller and just really captivating energy. And I just knew, like, wow, this was the right decision. Holy smokes, like I just felt an energetic shift in my own being, just being in the room with him and getting to hear him talk about the breath in a way that I'd never heard anybody else talk about the breath.
Mm.
And then, maybe within 30, 45 minutes, he had mentioned, oh yeah, we have this 21-day breathwork retreat that we do every year. And that's in February. So this was like 6 months before it was going to happen. But instantly, like I'd been in the room with him for 30 minutes, and I was like, I know I'm going to be at that 21-day breathwork retreat. Nothing's going to stop me. I
Yeah.
have to be there, and
Yeah.
it was like, I didn't care if it was going to cost $100,000. I was going to find a way to get the money and be there, because it was just like, I know that this man is a wealth of wisdom and knowledge and experience, and just all the things that I want in my life and that I
Mm.
want to experience. And that it was just like, you know couldn't have gone any better, and I just couldn't be more grateful that I made that decision.
Yeah, man. Thank you for both of those stories. And I want to point out a couple things. Notice it for everyone listening, notice in that second story, the order of kind of the those feelings. And what I mean by that is, so first Ryan goes, you know what, I'm gonna buy a ticket to this, just it feels right. But then he gets there, and within 30 minutes, he's like, this was absolutely the right decision. Like, I needed to be here. And like, I know I'm going to do that next thing. But this goes back to what we said before. Where are you hesitating on taking an action because you don't have it all figured out yet? He didn't have that absolute, like, ironclad certainty before he got to the event. He just had that kind of gut feeling. My spirit's telling me that's the thing to do. But it's maybe not 100% yet. And then, like, he follows as hard he goes, and then it opens up. So what's that inclination that you're feeling? And then what if you move in that direction? I just love that. And it reminds me of one of a guest on my podcast earlier, phenomenal episode. His name is Michael Ketchen, good friend of mine. I recommend you check his episode out. Very successful real estate guy. And he has this quote that he always says of just bet on yourself. Like, that's his big thing. Are you willing to bet on yourself? And in that same kind of way, notice that, what Ryan said, and a theme that I notice whenever I ask this question of my guests, the thing that they look back, the risk, the decision, the whatever they want to call it, that they're deeply grateful for and why, it's always because I chose me. I did something that was scary in the moment, that might still even be scary at times now, that shifted the trajectory of my life, and it was in alignment with what my heart, my soul, my calling felt like it was in the moment. And you never regret that. It doesn't always work out when you follow it, but it'll work out however it's supposed to work out, in the sense that you grow, you meet people, you learn. I'd much rather go after my dreams for 10, 20 years and it just didn't happen for some reason, and at least know that I gave it a shot, than never try it at all and have the regret side of looking back and going, I wonder if that would have worked if I tried that. And so just really want to acknowledge you for taking these bets on you and saying, I have to be there. I'm going to find a way. Like, this is resonating so strongly with me. I know that's why I'm here. Like, I got to do this. And a lot of people don't do that. Everyone's capable of it, but a lot of people don't choose it. And you did. And so I really want to acknowledge you for that. And I encourage everyone who's here with us, where can you do that in your life? Where can you lean in? Where is there a phone call that you can make? It's like Ryan talked about, the power of one. Where's that one message you could send, the one phone call you can make, the one action you could take, the one step that potentially changes everything? The one networking event that you go to, that you meet your future business partner, your future spouse, that you're considering going to, but you're not really sure. There's all these things that can change in your life. I remember hearing, you mentioned Joe Rogan earlier. It was a Joe Rogan like clip on YouTube, and it basically said, life is 50-50, but you've got to go first. You throw the ball up and it comes back down. But in order for it to come back down, you got to throw it up first. And so in that same kind of way, you have to take the action first. Like, how do I know you're serious about something? Because you're doing it. You're investing your time, your energy, your money into something. That's how you know you're serious about it. But you have to do that first in order for the result to come back. There's that old expression I've heard. It's like you go to the fireplace and you're yelling at it saying, give me heat first and then I'll light the logs. It doesn't work that way. You got to light it first, then you get the heat. That's like, you got to take the action. You got to do the outreach. You got to take the step so the outside world can then have its turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I remember, perfect timing, actually. I was mentioning, I was reading that Joe Polish book, and he was talking about, I got all the certifications, all the best equipment, all this, all that. He was a carpet cleaner and, trying to make his business successful. And he's like, I can't figure it out. Like, maybe I'm just not in the right business, and I remember thinking the exact same thing when I first started with Breathwork. It was like, I had learned how to do it. I'd been practicing for 2 years. I was just like wanting people to just show up at my classes. But it was like, I was like barely sending an email out a day or two before, like not doing any real outreach and promotion. I was like, maybe a little bit of the internal fear of putting it out there, putting myself out there. And then after a while, I realized, wow, once I really started just putting it out there, stop letting fear slow me down, and then stop letting this, like, I don't know how to do it, like wanting somebody else to come save me. Once I get past all that, then things really start happening. And it might not be right away, like right at first, but little breadcrumbs from the universe slowly but surely come in. And as they do, it just feels so good. And there's something you mentioned earlier that made me think of this, and ties back in is, if it was easy, it wouldn't be worth it. If there wasn't the challenge, the struggle, the the hurdles in the way of from point A to point B or Z, it just wouldn't feel so good when we get there, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Yeah, I love that because it reminds me of this quote I heard when I was a kid. What you get will never make you happy. Who you become will either make you very happy or very sad. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, who you
Yeah.
become is through the challenges, through the struggles, through the trial and error. It's like when I think about, like you said, you're putting on an event, whoever's listening, you're doing your version of that. You're putting your dream out there, you're putting an offer out there, you're inviting people to do something with you, whether it's a single one person, like a date or something, or whether it's a client or a customer or whatever it is. And initially the fear might be, well, what if I do it and they say no? What if they, and we take it personally and we fall into the illusion of rejection. And what I mean by that is, for me, rejection doesn't exist. Rejection is a concept. Rejection is the story that you make up about what my no means. Now realize the wording there. Rejection is a story that you make up about what my no means. Because the reality is that my no just means no. My no doesn't mean you're not good enough. My no doesn't mean that you don't have what it takes. My no doesn't mean that your parents were right. You're never going to amount to nothing. Like, that's not what any of that means. That's all made up. No just means I'm not interested. But the next person might be really interested. It's got nothing to do. Don't take it personally. And so now going back to, we have the option. Okay, I could make that email invitation. I could call that person. I could invite that person, but then we don't, and we don't because there's that fear, the rejection. What if they don't like it? But now what if the flip side is, well, if I've got this product, this service, I've got this offer, this invitation, and I make it and nobody wants it, wouldn't I want to know that so I can make it better, so that then they would want it? And that's the only way that we're going to find that out. But if I've got something and I'm unwilling to share it out of fear that you might not like it, then, well, why did I make it in the first place? Because I wanted to help somebody. I wanted to make someone else's life better. I wanted to make some money, whatever it was that I wanted to do. Well, that's not going to happen unless I involve somebody else. And so what if we check the fear at the door, and again realize, like I said earlier, fear, just like you don't have to be confident to get started, you don't have to be fearless to get started. You can have courage, which means you're afraid, but you get started anyway. You're afraid, but you move forward anyway. So what if you had the courage to say, you know what? I am getting called in a certain direction right now. There is something that's on my heart that I'd like to do. Again, I can't guarantee that you call that person, you ask them out, they're going to say yes. But I can guarantee you call that person out. If they say no, at least now you know and you can move on. And if they say
Mm-hmm.
yes, you're going to be like, I'm so glad I listened to this podcast. Like, but all these things, your life can change in an instant. And so as we begin to wrap up, Brian, what's exciting you now in your world that you're working on, that you're creating?
Yeah. Number one is my practitioner program,
Mm.
Ascension Breath Mastery, and it's definitely my baby that I've been working on for years, really, and it's just things have come together in such a beautiful way, and it feels like such divine alignment because it's the thing in business that's started happening with success easier than anything else, quicker than anything else, and just have attracted my first few students without just with grace and ease, and so that I'm really passionate about doing that and just sharing the power of the breath, bringing all the wisdom and knowledge that I've accumulated and synergized and put it just in a way that I can share it with each person through all the different modalities, the course sessions, all these different our group calls, and really just wanting to empower other individuals so that we can have more breath workers in this world. We definitely
Yeah.
deserve more of them, and for the breath to just continue to be shared with others. So that's one thing I'm just super super passionate about, and whether it's somebody who's a coach, a healer, or just a high performer, it's something I know can benefit anybody and everybody in different ways.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And my own recommendation for everyone listening. I've gotten to know Ryan, really well, and he's the real deal. And when it comes to having not only the ability for yourself to learn how to do this, like Brian gave us that, Ryan, I think I said Brian. Ryan gave us that really beautiful and short experience that can be so impactful for your life. And now imagine you add layers and layers and layers on top of that, making it so much more useful for you. But then you take a practitioner training like this, and now you learn how to facilitate that for other people, whether it's friends and family, just doing it because you want to do it, you want to help, or a side income or a full-on profession as a career. But either way, that's just so wonderful that it's a way of giving back. It's a way of everybody wins. That rising tide lifts all boats. And like you said, it brings more breath workers out into the world, because like you, there were a lot of people who had no idea about this. And now that you know it, you're like, how does everybody not know this? Bringing more people on board will facilitate that transformation of the planet, that more people know about it and get benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's very well said. And just definitely the vision, and I know you've seen my vision video, and that's
Yes.
something I just would love to shout out my friend Nick Rapcliffe, who's creating these vision videos, Just Grow vision videos. And it's just a reminder. I get to see this vision. I was so clear on it, getting to see every day exactly what I am here to create in the world. And just that, just bringing more awareness to the breath, more conscious breathing, teaching others to do it so that that impact can be exponential
Mm,
and in that ripple that's caused, and not just limited by me and how many sessions I can do in a day or in a week,
yeah.
right? And I can just teach others to do the same thing, because it's not me, it's the breath, and there's the wisdom of the breath. And that's one of my favorite things to just remind my students is, it's take all the pressure off yourself. It's not about can I do this, or like am I good enough. It's like just facilitate the breath, show up in reverence for the breath, and then it takes care of itself, because it's such a
Mm,
magical modality.
yeah. That's a perfect way to close today. And so, how can our listeners learn more about you and connect with you, Ryan?
Yeah. So Instagram is a great place. Master my breath, and that's the Instagram handle, Master my breath. And also, email is great for now, because I don't have my website live just yet. But it'll be mastermybreath.com, and then my email is ryan@mastermybreath.com.
Perfect. 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 I'll have all the links to connect with Ryan in the show notes below. I want to say, first of all, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today, for giving us the gift of that breath experience. I mean, I'm not just saying it, it really was wonderful for me. And I trust everyone else had a wonderful experience as well. I encourage people to go back, listen to this episode again, especially that breathwork exercise. Get that down, add that to your toolkit, and then use it. If it's just, I make the joke sometimes. People talk about books that you read or you buy them, you don't read them, you put them on the shelf, and they become shelf help. You don't ever get any personal benefit because they're just sitting there. In that same kind of way, this tool that Ryan shared with us, this experience, it's only valuable if you use it. It's only
Hmm.
valuable if you remember that whenever I'm anxious, whenever I'm stressed, whenever I want help going to sleep, whatever your point of using it, use it, practice it, make it a part of your day-to-day life, and amazing things happen. And so if this episode resonated with you, first and foremost, please share it. Share it with anyone that you believe it would benefit from. Please leave a review, whether it's Apple, Spotify, if it's a YouTube comment, anywhere you're tuning into this, the reviews really help, and they help the show expand and more people to see it and learn about it. And similar to what you said about the breathwork, how do more people not know about this? I've had people tell me that about the show, and I love, that's a beautiful comment. I love that,
Hmm.
and it would really mean a lot. Share this far and wide, and let's help as many people as we can together. Ryan, anything you'd like to say as we close?
Hmm. That's all for me. Thank you again for having me on. I just love getting to share the journey and the breath. So thank you again, and thank you everybody for listening. And yeah, peace, love, and breath.
Oh, that's gonna be the name of the show. Peace, love, and breath. I love
Yeah.
it. All right. And so, like I said in the beginning, my life's work is to help leaders, champions, and high performers to experience more happiness, peace, and fulfillment as they create an extraordinary life without regret. If there's anything that you're going through right now, whether you got challenges in your business, your relationship, your mindset, your happiness, health, spirituality, it's that full spectrum of the human experience. let's dive deep into a conversation. Let's see what's going on in your world. Let's see what you'd love to create and experience. And if I can help, I'd love to help you do that. And so you can reach me at jamilsayaj.com. I'll have the link in addition to everything Ryan shared. And if you're looking for the podcast, obviously, you can find it. Transformation Starts Today, anywhere you tune into podcasts or on YouTube. And on social media, I have about 800 or 900 pieces of content on there over the years, short videos, short little blog posts, quotes, things that can really help turn someone's moment or day around. On Instagram, it's at Dr. Jamil Sayaj, DR, and then my name. Facebook is just Jamil Sayaj. LinkedIn is the same, just Jamil Sayaj. Thank you again so much for your time, your energy, your attention. Ryan, thank you for being with us. I have found that most people's favorite day to change their life is tomorrow, and that's why they stay stuck. But every one of you can be different. For you, transformation can start today, but you got to choose it. And like Ryan said, it's the power of one. One choice in one moment can change the course of your entire life. Sending you all so much love right now. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for being with us today. If this conversation served you, it would mean a lot if you left a review and shared this with anyone who may benefit. An extraordinary life without regret is available to you now. Choose it. It's your time.